Got
This is
it.
this is Karen with newclevelandradio.net, and it is time for Avoid the Maze. And Avoid the Maze is uh, a podcast where we talk to people of all different areas in life and from various cities and countries as well. Because sometimes as we're walking down that path of life, the thing that we decided this is the path I'm going to take, sometimes we get detoured along the way. My guest today is Deb Manso, and she has a new single out called Wordplay. And I really got caught up in the name of the song, Deb, um, because my older brother is a Scrabble player. So anytime I see something with the name Word, it's like, are you a Scrabble player or a devout reader? So tell us a little bit about the single and how you wrote it and who you are.
Okay. So wordplay, the title, the irony was that I was taking a songwriting course. And so you know how it's a word mapping exercise. So they
Sure.
call it wordplay. And so it was like the title of the word document. And then I wrote the song and saved it that way.
I love it. I love it.
And I was just like, it doesn't have anything to do with the song, but I was like, I just like the way it sounded and kept it like that. Um, as far as inspiration, I feel like I'm speaking for a lot of women that are single and dating. And, I've gone through periods of dating, and it's just like, I felt like I met a lot of unintentional people. And I'm at a point in my life where I want to have intention. I want to meet someone that's intentional and that wants something serious. And so that's what inspired wordplay.
It's interesting that you say that because I have my youngest son uh, keeps saying the same thing, but in the opposite way. I want to meet women who are intentional, who aren't, you know, out just for the moment and looking for something just at the moment. Um, he too writes a lot of lyrics. Most of them are still in a notebook, and I don't know if they'll ever be heard, but I know a lot of vulnerability comes out in his music. So I'm sensing from you that that is what we would hear when we listen to you.
Yeah, I am older, and I just want to say that when I've been doing music for about 20 years, and when I was doing it in my 20s, there was a lot of pressure to kind of fit into what's going on. And the luxury about music in this day and age is that as an independent artist, you could do really whatever you want. So, me being in my 40s, I'm at a place where, yeah, it is going to be vulnerable because I'm doing everything I want. I'm not following a script. I'm not following what works. I'm just doing what I want. So, and as an adult, you go through a lot of stuff. I mean, not everybody, but I have. So it's like I have a lot to say
Well, I
now.
think we all go through a lot. We may not realize it till one day when we're sitting down and maybe hearing a podcast or reading an article and we go, wow, you know, I've experienced that and that and that. And then you sit there and go, oh my gosh, like there's more going on in my life than I ever thought. Some good, some not so good as well. But you say that you've been, in music for 20 years. When you were before that time period, when you were growing up, was music something that you got drawn to, or did you have other aspirations as to who you were going to be when you grew up?
I've always wanted to be a singer. Like I always knew that was my calling. I think that tradition and this idea of what's real is what prevented me from pursuing my dreams. It was like, you can't do that. You got to go to college. And then I had a son. I have a son. So it was like, you got to raise your child. You have to make money. It was like that's impossible. So it was like, and then we see musicians as such big people and so unobtainable, but now I understand that it doesn't necessarily have to be that. It's just a form of self-expression, and that's it. You know what I'm saying?
Absolutely. I love that. So let's go back to the song Wordplay. Wordplay has nothing to do with the song. So, what is the song really about?
It's just a declaration of like, I want to meet someone who's intentional. I want to meet someone who's not, in a rush to sleep with me, that wants to get to know me, and is looking for love like I'm looking for love.
Well, it's a great message. I'm just hoping that those who feel the same way are really listening, because I've seen it, so sadly on both the male and the female side, where, hey, maybe I'm going to be alone the rest of my life. And for some, that's a choice. Okay. And for others, it's, I still want to find that one person
Absolutely.
who's my soulmate. Um, so you're originally from New York and you perform in New York. Have you performed outside of the state?
Well, I have not had any live shows since the pandemic. So this is my comeback. And I'll
Ah,
probably start doing shows, I want to say in September, October. But prior to the pandemic, yeah, I was singing in different states and I was, doing a lot of traveling and mostly New York based stuff. But I was with a band, I was doing like cover tunes. Like I never really was doing my own stuff. So I think the pandemic kind of slowed things down and gave me the opportunity to really write out a catalog of songs. A lot of these songs that are going to be coming out all happened during the pandemic.
you know, and as horrible as that time was, it was so artistic for so many more.
Oh yeah.
I hear this regularly that people have changed their careers since the pandemic. I don't have to go stand on my feet for 8, 9 hours a day, um, making minimum wage. I can do what I really want to do for more than that. Um, and so we're all making those changes in our life. And I did it as well. I started out the pandemic recovering from knee surgery. So I didn't
Mm.
even realize the extent of the pandemic in the beginning. But once I was mobile and I wanted to go places, it was like, well, I've been cooped up for 8 weeks.
Yeah.
And my husband said, and join the rest of us now. Okay. You're going to still be cooped up. Um, and that got my mind to thinking as well, like, what can I do differently? So it's really impressive that the pandemic got you to sit down and start writing lyrics.
Yeah, because I don't know how other creatives work, but for me, I need a vast amount of time and space. And what I mean by that is like I'm a little bit of an introvert. So like the pandemic for me was like how I was loving it. I was like, woo!
Yeah.
I was like basking in my loneliness. So yeah, it gave me the opportunity to be still and have all the time and space I needed to create.
So the New York club scene is so different than what most of us experience in our cities. I know here in Cleveland, we have a lot of places where both traveling musicians come to and our local musicians play at. And we're very lucky for what we have here. But it's not the same as New York City. And so many people just travel to New York City to find something new. So you said that you traveled a lot in New York, but I'm going to guess that New York City still is so much different than the other cities in the state of New York.
Oh yeah, of course. New York City is a lot different because there's more people, you're more inclined to get like a draw. I won't say I don't want to say you're more inclined to draw a crowd actually. I don't want to even say that. It's just it's different. You have more no, it's different because the crowd is different, but I was gonna say you would draw out a crowd, but that's not necessarily true. Like sometimes smaller cities and towns, you draw out a bigger crowd, you know?
Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, because we all think of everything in New York City being bigger than life. So we assume that some of those clubs would be that way too.
I would say the more popular venues are in New York, so that's what it's city, so that's where you have the advantage. But even with venues in New York City, there's so many of them. Everything's like super competitive in every aspect. You know, you're one of a million artists. There's like 100, 200, 300 venues. So, you know, you have a lot more options.
Right.
I think for me, I think the avenue that I want to take for myself, because social media really allows a broad reach. I definitely want to actually venture out of New York and tap into an outer audience.
So, one of the things that I'm learning as an independent artist, not only are you putting your music together, and even when you're doing cover band music, you know, you have to make sure that you're all licensed and everything about that. And if you're the performer, you need some assistance with the music. That was one of the issues that my son was coming up against. Uh, you know, he's a vocalist, does not play an instrument at all. And, you know, he didn't know how to approach the subject to different bands, is to become part of it. But you have to do all of that. You book your own, you make your own arrangements. So the glorious life that most of us think you're living is really very crowded with many other challenges that you have to attend to.
Yeah, for me, I say first off, you have to have money. You're probably not going to recoup that for a minute, you know, your return, but it's a labor of love because the gratification I get every time I finish a project, I'm like, 'cause I also released the video as well. It just makes me feel like, okay, I put it out into the universe and I served my purpose. Whatever happens next, I'm not worried about it, you know? But it's a labor of love. You have to take it day by day and you just have to just keep doing it. You know, if you think ahead of like, well, I don't know how I'm going to put the band together, like miraculously, all these things tend to work itself out.
Well, and you have to have a positive attitude too, which you
By
appear
far,
to,
yes.
because
Yeah.
there are a number of indie professionals that I've talked to that they know their craft, but they don't know how to put all those other
Market
pieces
part.
together.
Yeah.
And that can be hard for anybody. Um, you know, most of us today have to multitask. We have to know how to do those things, but doesn't mean that we like them or we do them well. So
Mhm.
right now you're on this music journey of putting, you know, these songs together. Um, do you have this big dream? So I guess where I'm getting at, um, I know growing up, most of the musicians that I heard of were musicians that I could go to the store and buy a 45 and go home and put it on my record player. And for those of you listening, yes, I lived in the dinosaur ages, and
Oh,
play the
me
music.
too. Even during my time, they were like tape CDs and tape cassettes. Now it's
Yep,
harder to make money,
right.
venues and you have to get endorsements. But miraculously, the miracle of God, I had gotten signed by a modeling agency back in June. So that, with that has been like funding my dreams. And as far as like where I see myself creatively, I have like these milestones. Like I would hope in a year to recoup all the money that I put in the next 2 years, start touring. Year number three, being able to make also endorsements through money. So I have like a 3-year plan.
And sometimes we really need that plan, even if it shifts while we're going forward. One of the things that I've learned when I changed my career 10 years ago, um, you know, I thought initially, oh, I'm going to start podcasting and I'm going to have a podcasting group, which we do. And I was looking for those dollar signs.
No
And
kidding.
it took me about 3 months to say, if you're looking for the dollar signs, you're never going to improve. And so I finally had to say to my family, there's not going to be any money here. If and when it comes, that will be a milestone. In the meantime, I'm going to do what I'm good at, and I'm going to learn how to be even better at it. And it sounds like that's exactly what you've been doing as well.
Yeah, my approach, very present with it. And just like you said, like I can't look at the dollar signs, I have to just keep going and just, have my little milestones. Like, okay, this is what I anticipate in a year, in the next 2 years, in the next 3 years, but just enjoy the process, which is very important.
Well,
And not
and I
feel
think
like it's
that's
done,
a
you
good
know?
a good thing for all of us, no matter what our venture is in life. If we can't appreciate where we are right now, it's not going to get any better. And so
Yeah.
you have to take it moment by moment. So wordplay is out. What comes next?
I do have like songs ready to release. I have a release schedule. I'm releasing another song in the month of July. It's called Cocaine Main. And then I'm going to be releasing a song called Dopamine. I want to say in August, and then September, Never Satisfied. And then the EP like October, January. And that will be my first EP. My goal, like I'm back in like I call it a writing camp, which it takes me about a year to write stuff. And so I'm back in a writing camp, and I hope my goal for 2024 is to release a cohesive EP. Right now, these are songs that were written during the pandemic. I'm finishing up and throwing them out to the universe. There was no order to the chaos; it's just being put out. But my goal for 2024 is to release a cohesive body of work where like it's one storyline. You know what I'm saying?
I love that. I love that. And the ones that you just mentioned sound a little heavy. So how can you describe your music to our listeners?
I want to say it's real. Like it's not pop, sugar-coated pop. It's not what they call a pop, something you're gonna dance to. Well, Cocaine Main is a kind of a remix, but it's just real experiences. Like Cocaine Main is about a relationship I had with a drug addict, and you know, it's reflective. It's like, how did I put myself in a position where that's acceptable, And I feel like a lot of people could resonate with that. Like, you have low
Absolutely.
self-esteem, you deal with anybody. And then now that I've gone through therapy and I'm in a good place, I look back and I'm like, wow, I was like literally at a very low moment in my life. And then dopamine is about being on antidepressants. People who I do have depression, and it's my relationship with like I don't want to have to depend on something like that. Like I'm a healthy person. I don't drink, I don't do drugs, I exercise, I don't eat processed foods. And so like, but I still have to take mental health medication. You know what I'm saying? So it's like it's very conflicting for me.
Right.
You know?
And, this is coming about at a wonderful time in your life where we can talk about these things.
Yeah.
For a good portion of my life, I didn't know I was depressed. I knew I wasn't really happy.
Mm-hmm.
But I came from an upbringing where it was make somebody else happy and it's going to reflect on you.
Me too.
And I did that for the majority of my life. And I woke up one day realizing there's something wrong with this picture. If I'm going to make you happy by doing this podcast, well, am I happy doing it? Well, if I'm happy doing it, yes, but you can't give your happiness to me and I can't give mine to you. And I find that more and more of us have mental health issues.
Mm-hmm.
And the more we can talk about them, the better off we all are. Um, some people are taking medication, some are doing it by diet. Whatever works to keep you healthy is what is most important. So I want to thank you for sharing that because, we get this picture of what an entertainer is. And sadly, the social media has done that throughout the years. Okay.
Yes, I
Um,
agree.
you know, Taylor Swift on her magical mystery tour, whatever she's been doing. And, people spending thousands of dollars to go hear her. And it's like, she's a great entertainer, but there's so many other entertainers out there, and not all are going to get to the status that she has. And I'm not sure that status is important for many, because if you can be recognized, if you can do your craft, as you said, that is
universe. For me, it's like first steps. And what's the most rewarding for me is that I did it.
I love that.
Yeah, because this is vulnerabilities. It's scary. Like I'm talking about mental health. A lot of my peers didn't know that I suffered from depression. A lot of my peers didn't know I was dealing with a cocaine addict. Like a lot of my peers didn't know, you know what I'm saying? So it's like sharing that is like, it's scary.
Yeah, it can be. Absolutely. But we also have to stop our judgment, and we have to stop judging ourselves.
Absolutely.
And when somebody shares something, not to judge them as well. I've been down that road. I had people when I first came out about 12 years ago saying, now I know what's wrong with me and I'm going to get it fixed. They looked at me and said, oh, I'm sorry you're sick. And the further and further away they moved.
Yeah.
Were they really friends? Probably not. Okay.
Yep.
I feel so much better for doing it because it's gotten me to a healthy place.
Absolutely.
So as you talk about your music, you also mentioned that you have a son. What does your son think of your music?
He's been dealing with me as a musician for about 20 years. So he's like, he supports it, but he's for him, like for him, it's just it's what it's been for 20 years, but he supports it. Like he's happy about it. And I'm sure he's proud of me.
And that's also very important for us, is to have at least one cheerleader who's acknowledging that, hey, I know this is your dream. Keep going for it. So what words of wisdom would you have for somebody who's been sitting around, maybe writing music, hasn't shared it with anybody? They sing in the shower because they're not sure they're good enough, but they really want to step out. What do they do?
Keep practicing and put your stuff out there. Don't be afraid to put it out there. Everyone has a different budget, because let me tell you something, being an artist costs money. And I say that if you want to be a ballerina, you got to go to ballet school. You know what I'm saying? If you want to be a, airline pilot, you have to go to airline aviation school. The same thing applies with music. You have to work on your craft. This is not something, some people think like, you wake up one morning. Well, there is music out there where it sounds like you woke up one morning and put it out there. But like I was in music school for about 10 years. So it wasn't like I woke up one morning and was like, I'm good. It was like I've taken lessons. I've learned how to play the guitar, piano lessons. I mean, I've went through this whole process, and just be patient with yourself, but definitely work on your craft, be patient with yourself and put it out.
I love it. I love it. Well, I want to thank you for joining us today. I want all of our listeners to look for you. So what we're going to do is, in our show notes, we're going to put all your social media out there. We're going to encourage everybody to listen to Deb Rivas. I can't wait to actually go out and listen to more than the first bar or two of your music. And I'm going to share it with our listeners.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Have a beautiful day.
You too. And thank you for having me.
Sure. Bye-bye now.